Why is it that the best in business across every facet of life still practice the fundamentals, whereas the people who are just getting started, they want the crazy things, they want the flash, they want all the different stuff, and it isn't the most effective thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Budo Brothers podcast. You got Eric
And Kyle.
And I have been thinking a lot about how important it is to focus on fundamentals. And the reason why I say this is when I look back at all the digital seminars that we've done with all of these amazing martial artists, one common theme that I can thread between them all is they all say, focus on the fundamentals.
Right.
Stick to the basics.
Mm-hmm.
It works.
For sure. And if you look at all of the arts, it all boils down to simple things that work across almost everything. You can boil it down, and there's only a few movements within each art. Now, once you get into the more artistic side, it expands and it evolves and it grows. But when you look at every art, there's certain fundamentals like jabs, crosses, hooks, round kicks, straight kicks, grappling, takedowns, ground fighting, basic principles that rely that are within each, that are just truths. They just work in everything. Now you can add a little bit of seasoning to it, a little bit of spice, but the cream rises to the top, and there's certain things that work.
Big time.
Like why is a jab the most common used punch in more sports martial arts? Because that's the best punch.
It's the quickest.
Yeah, it's the quickest. It's the
Set
fastest.
it up.
You're never going to change that.
Yeah. And how many boxers will spend 2 hours training the jab? And that's all they do.
Yeah.
They are working the fundamentals. And that's difficult to do because a mind like mine would be, this is boring. I want to learn a 17-punch combo.
Yeah.
That's just the way I'm attracted to flashy things.
You know what's amazing was when we're down in Jackson Wink Academy and we got to see some of the MMA fighters there. John Jones was in the place training while we were filming, and he was just literally throwing jabs on the heavy bag for the whole time we were there. Now, this guy is the best MMA fighter in the world, and he's still practicing the jab relentlessly. Why is it that the best in business across every facet of life still practice the fundamentals, whereas the people who are just getting started, they want the crazy things, they want the flash, they want all the different stuff, and it isn't the most effective thing. Sometimes it hurts us when it comes to filming too, right? Because sometimes the things that you catch on camera, the flash and all of the 19 different moves,
Scroll stoppers.
stops people in their feed versus what actually could work, right?
Big time. I also feel like if you ever hear someone when they're up against a very challenging problem, they say, take it back to first principles. First principles meaning the fundamentals.
Yeah.
The fundamentals are usually the first principles you learn, whether it's complex math, complex engineering problems, things you're like, whoa, I've never seen that before. They have to say, take it back to first principles.
Yeah.
Because very rarely do the first principles, the foundation on which things are built on, very rarely do they steer you wrong.
Yeah.
But it's also a challenge because you have to be bound. You can't just only stick to fundamentals, because then you're not exploring, you're not trying new things, you're not forming new hypotheses, you're not testing. You've got your fundamentals, but you're also exploring and expanding.
And I'm terrible at names of skills in other languages, but an Asotogari, a tripping skill.
Yeah.
That is literally in every single martial art we've filmed. It is just a technique that is in jiu-jitsu, Filipino martial arts, Jeet Kune Do, karate, Aikido. It's Krav Maga. We've seen it everywhere.
Yeah.
And there are certain things that are within everything, like the hip throws, jabs, crosses, like takedowns. They are just fundamentals. And as a martial artist, the hardest part is to not get bored at practicing the fundamentals and continually sharpening those tools, because the trick to the fundamentals is being able to pull them off at any variable as your opponent and environment changes. When you're against somebody taller, when you're against somebody shorter, when you're on a different surface, when you're, maybe impaired because you've had too much to drink, when, you're feeling sick that day, you should be able to throw or do the fundamental things that work in any situation.
And to draw that same analogy from fighting and focusing on the fundamentals to become effective, I was listening to a podcast with Ray Dalio, who is one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the game. Bridgewater. This man did some incredible things in his life and is in a phase in his life where he just wants to impart his wisdom and share his lessons and his learnings through his wild journey. I highly recommend reading his book, Principles. Unreal. Again, his book called Principles is all about the fundamentals of how to be effective, how to be an effective human and be good at what you do.
And he, at 30, created a multi-billion-dollar hedge fund.
Yeah.
And is talking about some of the problems that he sees in the world. And his solutions are so simple, like fixing the family unit, educating everybody.
Yes.
And producing value in order to get out of hard times that are ahead.
And just vicious cycles that don't stop. And his solution is, he's like, let's get back to the basics.
Yeah.
Focus on the fundamentals. Like you said, strong education, good healthcare.
Yeah.
Communities, family unit.
Yes.
Serving each other.
Yeah. And make more than you consume.
And save the difference.
Yeah.
And this is why I love listening to such timeless wisdom, because you're just like, oh man, it's so basic, but it's so true and it's so useful.
Yeah. And the other thing too is, look at those consultants who go into a business and they get paid millions of dollars to consult for the business, and they walk in the door on the first day. It's like, hey, so tell me a time when everything was going really well. Cool. And what were you doing in that time? Okay, yeah, awesome. Yeah, let's do more of that. And everybody's like, oh,
yeah. Genius.
Back to the fundamentals, because you always drift away. You want to do more and more and more.
Exactly. What brought you the success that you have been blessed to experience? It was there for a reason. And we've done this with our business as well when we're going through these growth phases to make sure we're not too distracted on all these shiny things, because we could be doing 1,000 different things.
Yeah.
But we always say, what? Especially if we've stalled out or are not growing or not feeling like we're stuck. We're like, what did we used to do that worked that we're not doing now? Yeah. And often it's as simple like, whoa, we got to pay more attention to customer service. We got to, let's focus on, like, we're letting our products, we have to have amazing products. That is an experience that when you get it, you're like, whoa, a robot didn't make this. This has got a human touch.
Yeah.
And then it's like, let's get back to those basics. Let's not go mass production, 100 people, company. No. Because that's how we would lose our magic.
Yes.
It's back to the fundamentals.
And like you said, it's just monotony, fundamentals. And how can you make the fundamentals fun? Where do you find the joy in doing it? Because you don't want to get trapped in this like repetitive loop where you just get bored and doing the same thing over and over like it's Groundhog's Day. How do you make them interesting?
This is where I think style comes in, finesse. You know, if you watch a pro snowboarder, they could do a basic grab off of a jump, but they could do it so smoothly, with such finesse and grace that it is poetry in motion, but it is a basic trick. And I think that's where you can make it fun by adding your flair to it, your essence, and make it look amazing. Like that is a way that I think you could keep fundamentals exciting, is to just get it so down pat that you can add that which is your own.
The other thing about sticking to the fundamentals, it makes your stuff timeless. I learned this from Jay-Z. Jay-Z, in his younger days, went and he did an album. He did his first album, and it was amazing. It was one of my favorite albums ever made, Reasonable Doubt. And his second album, he really commercialized it because he wanted to do it big, and like Puff Daddy and all of these other superstars were coming out. So he was posing with like the flashy colors and the suits and like looking ridiculous. And you look back at that 90s style, and they look ridiculous.
Right.
Like, what are you wearing? Like, you look like a freaking glitter bomb.
It was the style.
But he felt it wasn't authentically him. And from then, literally from after that album on, all the man wore was black t-shirts. Because he knew whether you took a picture of him in the 90s and the 2020s, if you're wearing a black t-shirt, you're going to be in fashion and in style. And it's a timeless look.
Fundamental.
Yes. So he stuck to the fundamentals. And it's the same with anything you do. When you try to flare it up and spice it up too much, take video editing, for example. What we've learned is that when you throw a whole bunch of titles and this and animations and
spinning logo.
Exactly. If you went back and looked at the videos with the spinning logos and the crappy animations at the beginning, you're like, oh, this dated this exactly to this date, right?
Yeah.
But if you just have a simple cut and edit and you use your angles and the video itself to do the talking, it's a timeless thing. Look at Jurassic Park. That video just didn't overdo things, and it stuck to the fundamentals of video making, and that movie is still beautiful.
Yeah, it's a work of art.
Yeah,
it really is. And at the same time, it was also cutting. It was, no one has ever seen special effects like that before. Mm-hmm. But it also was it was just an incredible story that stuck to the fundamentals of storytelling, adventure, challenge.
Yeah,
you can identify with characters. Like, these are the basics. These are the fundamentals of making movies.
Yeah, and then you go to the opposite, where a movie just used special effects and had no story. You go back and look at those, like, this is garbage.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, that's it. And it's especially a fad or something that's hot. You've got to do this because this is what's popping right now.
These fidget spinners will last forever.
Oh, fidget spinners. Fidget spinners is the perfect example. Do you remember the peak fidget spinner craze where there was like kiosks in the mall that just set up shop and they had just have 90 different fidget spinners?
Yeah. And they're breaking the laws of the fundamentals of business.
Yes. And remember how close we were to bringing out a fidget spinner?
Oh man, I wish we did. I would still I would still play with that.
I'm glad we didn't, because by the time we finally got around to like, yeah, maybe we should. I guess it's here to stay. Pop. Nobody gives a shit about fidget spinners anymore.
And even to the fundamentals of life. Sometimes there's so much drama in people's lives that they forget the fundamentals, the basics: food, water, shelter,
family,
good relationships.
Yeah.
You know, having something to do that fulfills you and serving others. You stick to that, you live a happy life.
It's a damn good life.
And it's so basic.
Yes.
But people forget that, and they have to throw in, oh, I need this and this yacht and this car and this Lambo. And
you might as well take out that loan.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
That's right.
Let's go.
Let's put ourselves levered up.
Yeah. it's funny. It's almost like a progression as well. Like when you're first starting or getting new to something, you know, jiu-jitsu, you're a spaz. You're a white belt. You freak. You crazy white belt shit that I do.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Like you're exerting and you're doing all these things, and then once you start to grow, you start to slow things down, you start to have a little fun, you start to focus on the fundamentals, you're moving less and doing more. It's how is that possible?
And I know the process of every single white belt currently. You like get in there and you get so eager about it, and you learn a few things, and then you start like going down this rabbit hole and YouTubing all these videos of like flying arm bar and
all the fun
this,
stuff.
like all these crazy things.
Yeah.
Or if you're in like a striking art, you're like, oh, look at this 7-hit combo. That's perfect. Jab, cross, slip, uppercut, rotate the body, lower thing, dock and weave. Like that's never been a 9-hit combo planned out, has never landed in a real live boxing. Right? Because by the time you pull off the 9 moves, you've had the person's reacted in some way that's going to alter that. So fundamentals is the key. It's the key to greatness. Greatness is hard to attain, and so are consistently focusing on fundamentals.
Maybe that's the unlock.
Budo Brothers Challenge.
Oof. Look at some area of your life that got complicated. You know, there is a root solution that is based in fundamentals that can get you out of it. And it's half the time, let's go back to the basics.
Love it. I think that's where we'll leave it.
Until next week.
See you later.